My wife left with her boyfriend, leaving me with $20K in debt. Then, my son said something shocking. Imagine waking up to find your wife gone, your savings drained, and a $45,000 debt hanging over your head, all because she ran off with another man. That's exactly what happened to me. But I didn't sit back. Oh no, I fought back, and what happened next will leave you speechless. Stick around to see how I turn this nightmare around. Trust me, you won't believe what I uncovered. I woke up that morning expecting nothing more than the usual routine. The smell of fresh coffee in the air, the hum of the morning news in the background, the quiet of the house before the chaos of the day began. I had no reason to think anything was different. The alarm rang, and I dragged myself out of bed, still groggy, still tired from the long week at the construction site. It was a Friday, and I was looking forward to a quiet evening with Bianca and our son, Julian. Maybe a movie, maybe some takeout from that Italian place we liked. Nothing fancy, just a night at home, the three of us. I didn't know it yet, but that morning would be the last normal one I'd have for a long time. I stumbled into the kitchen, rubbing my eyes, trying to shake off the sleep. But the house was unnervingly quiet. Bianca should have been up by now. Her usual shuffle of getting breakfast ready, the click of her phone as she scrolled through social media while sipping on her overpriced latte. The usual sound of our morning routine was missing. The silence hit me like a cold wave. I frowned and glanced around the room, but there was no sign of her. The coffee machine sat there, unused. No sign of her designer bags scattered around like they always were. Just nothing. I called out for her, but there was no answer. It was then I saw the folded piece of paper resting on the kitchen table. The one thing out of place in the otherwise still house. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach as I walked over to it. My heart was already pounding, but I couldn't stop myself. I picked it up, my fingers trembling, and unfolded it slowly, half expecting the worst. The words hit me, like a punch to the gut. I have to find my own happiness. Take care of Julian for me. That was it, no explanation, no apology. Just a cold, matter-of-fact statement. She was gone. Just like that. Gone. The woman I loved, the mother of my son, had left us. Left me. Without a second thought. I stood there, staring at the note, my mind racing, trying to process what I had just read. I wasn't stupid. I knew something had been off lately. Bianca had been distant, secretive even. But this? This was beyond anything I had imagined. I could feel the anger rising in my chest, but I didn't let it show. I couldn't. Not yet. I turned quickly, heading toward the bedroom, already knowing what I was going to find. I yanked open the closet door, and it hit me. The shelves where Bianca's clothes should have been were empty. Her dresses, her shoes, her jewelry all gone. The drawers where she kept her things gone. The bathroom, which was always cluttered with makeup and lotions, and 100 different bottles empty. She hadn't just left. She had planned this. For how long? A week? A month? I couldn't tell, but the thought made my stomach twist. The realization hit me like a freight train every late night. Every meeting she had with friends had all been lies. I had been a fool to believe otherwise. I let out a bitter laugh, the sound hollow in the silence of the house. I had worked so hard to provide for her. For us. I had busted my ass, taking every extra shift, every late hour, just to make sure she had everything she wanted. I had kept my head down, kept working, convinced that things would get better. But all along, she had been planning her escape. She had been planning to leave me, to take everything with her, and drag our son down with her. I felt the heat of anger building in my chest. I was furious, confused, and numb all at once. But there was one thing I knew for sure. I wasn't going to just sit here and take it. Not this time. Just as I was trying to collect my thoughts, I heard the soft padding of feet behind me. I turned, and there stood Julian, his small face half hidden by sleep. His hair was a mess, his eyes still groggy. He rubbed them with the back of his hand, still trying to wake up, and blinked up at me. "Dad? What's going on?" The innocence in his voice broke something inside me. How was I supposed to explain this to him? How could I tell him that his own mother had chosen to leave? Just like that. I forced a smile, swallowing the lump in my throat. I couldn't tell him the truth. Not yet. Not with everything so fresh. "Hey, buddy. Mom had to leave for a while, I said, my voice catching. It felt like acid on my tongue, but I had to say something. Julian frowned, his eyes scanning the room. His gaze drifted toward the bedroom, the empty closet, the missing clothes. It didn't take a genius to figure out what had happened. My son was sharp. Too sharp for his own good. He was already putting the pieces together, even though he wasn't saying it out loud. He knew. She's not coming back, is she? His voice was steady. Too steady. It was like he had already accepted the truth, even though it cut me deeper than anything else could. I exhaled slowly, running a hand through my hair. I don't know, son. I really don't. We stood there for a long moment, neither of us saying anything. Julian didn't ask any more questions, but I could see the hurt in his eyes. The confusion. The pain. I wanted to shield him from all of this, to protect him from the hurt that Bianca had caused. But I couldn't. Not this time. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, loud and jarring, pulling me out of my thoughts. My heart skipped a beat, and I grabbed it, hoping, praying it was Bianca, that she had realized her mistake, that she was coming back. But when I saw the message, my heart dropped into my stomach. It was an email from the bank. I opened it, my fingers trembling. The subject line was enough to send a wave of dread through me. Overdue balance notification. $45,000 loan due immediately. What loan? I hadn't taken out any loan. I scrolled down, the words starting to blur together. But then I saw it. Bianca had taken out a loan in my name. $45,000. She had forged my signature, racked up debt behind my back, and left me holding the bag. The rage I had been holding back exploded, but I had to stay calm. I had to think. I turned to Julian, who was still standing there, watching me. His eyes were full of questions. I swallowed the fire in my chest, forcing my voice to steady. Nothing you need to worry about, buddy, I said, slipping my phone into my pocket. Go get dressed. We'll figure this out. But Julian wasn't stupid. He wasn't fooled by my words. Is this about money? He asked, his voice sharp. It hit me like a ton of bricks. How could I lie to him? How could I keep pretending everything was okay, when nothing was? Yeah, I admitted, my voice breaking for the first time. There's a problem. But I'll handle it. He didn't believe me. I could see it in his eyes. He knew more than I wanted to admit. And now, I had no choice but to figure out how to survive this mess, how to fix everything Bianca had destroyed. I couldn't breathe. The weight of the email, the $45,000 loan I never signed for, was pressing down on me like a ton of bricks. I didn't know what to do next. How was she so damn clever? So calculated? Bianca had always been a bit reckless, but this was beyond anything I'd ever imagined. I stood there in the kitchen, the silence pressing on me, the cold paper still in my hand. As I tried to make sense of everything, Julian stood there watching me, his face unreadable. I could see the wheels turning in his mind. My son was too sharp, too smart for his own good. He had already figured it out. I wasn't fooling him, not even for a second. I wanted to say something, to comfort him. But what the hell could I say? How could I protect him from the truth? How could I explain to him that his mother, the woman who gave him life, had turned our world upside down? The woman I trusted had betrayed us both. I could feel the rage building in my chest, but I had to stay calm. I had to. Julian needed me. I let out a deep breath, trying to steady myself. Julian, I finally said, trying to make my voice sound normal, but it came out strained. I need you to listen to me. This isn't your fault, okay? Your mom, she's made some terrible choices. The words felt like sandpaper against my tongue. I was lying to him, but I had to. He was just a kid. He didn't say anything at first. He just looked at me, his eyes searching mine like he could see through the walls. I was building around myself. After what felt like an eternity, he finally spoke, his voice quiet but firm. Dad, I know. I blinked, surprised. What do you mean you know? Julian crossed his arms, his expression calm, too calm for a 12-year-old. I know she's gone. I saw the closet. I saw the empty drawers. She's not coming back. The words hit me like a slap across the face. My son, my 12-year-old son, was handling this better than I was. He had already accepted what had happened. Probably before I even had the guts to. He was stronger than I gave him credit for. I swallowed hard, fighting to keep the tears at bay. "I'm sorry, buddy," I muttered, looking away. "I wish I could have stopped her. I really do." "Don't," he said, his voice soft but clear. "It's not your fault. It's hers." I couldn't help but feel a swell of pride at that. My son was strong. He was tough, even when life kicked him in the gut. He was facing down the destruction of everything he knew and loved, and he was standing tall. But just as I thought I might be able to pull myself together, the phone buzzed again. That damn sound like a shot to the head. It was the last thing I wanted to see, but I grabbed it anyway. Maybe I was hoping it was Bianca. Maybe I was hoping she'd realized what she'd done and was begging to come back. But it wasn't her, it was the bank. I opened the message, my heart sinking. The account balance was horrifying. The number on the screen a reminder of how deep we were now in the hole. Bianca's financial recklessness had left me holding the bag. I didn't know how she had done it, how she had gotten away with this for so long without me noticing, but the numbers were clear as day. She'd been using my name for months, taking out loans, draining our savings, and I hadn't even seen it coming. I felt sick, furious, betrayed. But I couldn't let Julian see me like this. I couldn't break down in front of him. I had to keep it together. I turned to him, forcing a smile, but it was weak, just a shadow of what it should have been. "We've got a problem," I said, trying to sound calm, but I could hear the edge in my voice. "A big one. And it's gonna take everything I have to fix it." Julian didn't say anything. He didn't need to. He already knew. The silence between us was thick, heavy. I could feel the tension crackling in the air, like something was about to snap. I didn't know how we were going to get out of this mess, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let her destroy us without a fight. I couldn't. I wouldn't. I picked up the phone again, my fingers shaking as I dialed the first number that came to mind, my friend Daniel. He was a forensic accountant, someone I trusted. I'd need his help if I had any hope of finding out what Bianca had done, and how to stop the damage. The phone rang 3 times before he picked up, his voice groggy at first. "Marcus? What's up, man? I need you to look at something for me," I said, my voice tight. "It's bad, Daniel. Really bad." He groaned, clearly not ready for whatever storm I was about to drop on him. "What happened? What's going on?" "I don't know all the details yet, but Bianca's been taking out loans in my name. She's draining our accounts, leaving me with a massive debt, and I think she's been hiding it for months." I could hear the frustration, the anger, creeping into my voice now. I didn't care. I was done being calm. "I need to know what she's been doing with all that money, Daniel. I need answers." "Jesus," he muttered under his breath. That's serious, man." "I know," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "And it's not just that. I think she's been funneling money to some guy named Carter Reynolds. She's been moving money around for him, hiding it from me." There was a long pause on the other end of the line, and then Daniel finally spoke. "Carter Reynolds? The guy with the shady past? Marcus, this is worse than I thought. You're not just dealing with your wife screwing you over. You're dealing with a criminal operation." I felt the blood drain from my face. This was bigger than I had thought. Bigger than I had ever imagined. I had always known Bianca had a little taste for the finer things in life, but I never thought she'd go this far. To get involved with someone like Carter. To destroy everything for a few bucks? I swallowed hard. "So, what do I do now?" "You need to freeze your accounts, Marcus," Daniel said, his voice urgent. "Get everything under control before she runs you dry. I'll help you trace what's been happening, but you need to act fast. If Carter is really tied up in this, the feds are going to start looking. You don't want to be left holding the bag when they do." "Right," I said, my mind already racing through the steps. "Freeze the accounts. Got it. And then, once we've got all the proof, you make sure it's in the hands of the right people. If this guy's involved, you don't want him slipping away." "I won't let him," I muttered, determination flaring in my chest. "I'll make sure they both pay for this." I hung up the phone, the weight of the conversation hanging in the air. Julian was standing there, watching me, waiting for something, an answer, a plan, something. But I didn't have all the answers yet. I didn't know how I was going to fix this, but I did know one thing. I was going to find out who Carter Reynolds was, and I was going to make sure he paid for everything Bianca had done. Dad? Julian's voice snapped me back to reality. What are we gonna do? I turned to him, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I managed to give him a real smile. We're gonna fight, Julian. We're gonna get through this. Together. And just like that, I knew I wasn't alone. This was our fight now. And I wasn't going down without a war. So, here's the real question. Do you think I should just let it go? Should I leave the law to handle it, or should I confront her face to face first? Comment 1 if you think I should expose her to the FBI. Comment 2 if you think I should confront her directly and make her face what she's done. You're not going to believe what happens next. The next few days felt like a blur. I moved through the motions, going through the routine, but everything felt different. The weight of the debt, the lies, Bianca's betrayal, it was all too much. I couldn't think straight. Every time I tried to focus, all I could hear was that damn email. $45,000 loan due immediately. I couldn't even escape it in my own house. The walls felt like they were closing in on me, and I had no idea how to get out of this mess. But I knew one thing: Bianca wasn't going to get away with it. Not if I had anything to say about it. I called Daniel again. This time, my voice was sharper, more focused. I had to get the answers, the proof. I couldn't let this go on any longer. If Bianca thought she could leave us in ruins and walk away, she had another thing coming. I needed to know exactly what she had been doing with the money, where it had gone, who she had been funneling it to. Daniel promised he would help, but there was one problem. It wasn't going to be easy. Money had a way of disappearing, especially when you didn't know where to look. But that was why I was calling him. He had the skills to track down every damn transaction. Every penny Bianca had taken. I couldn't sit idly by while this thing unfolded. Bianca had planned her escape, and now I had to plan mine. I spent hours poring over bank statements, trying to find something, anything that could give me a clue about where the money had gone. I saw the usual withdrawals for groceries, bills, utilities. But there were also the bigger withdrawals, the ones that didn't make sense. A hotel stay here, a transfer to an account that didn't belong to me, dinners that cost more than I made in a week. It all added up, and when I pieced it together, my stomach churned. She had been living this life for months, draining our savings, borrowing money, living as if nothing was wrong. All the while, I was busting my ass working overtime, believing everything was fine. Julian, as sharp as ever, noticed my frustration. He saw the way I was glued to the screen, the way my eyes darted across the pages of our bank account. He was quiet, watching me. For the most part, he didn't ask questions, but I could tell he was feeling it too. He was aware of the tension in the air, the unsaid words. This wasn't just about the money, it was about betrayal. It was about his mom abandoning us without warning, without a second glance. And he had a right to be angry. We both did. One evening, Julian came to me after dinner. He didn't say anything at first. He just sat beside me, his eyes downcast, his mind clearly working. I didn't know what he was thinking, but I knew it was something big. Finally, he spoke, his voice steady, like he had already processed it all. "Dad, do you think Mom will come back?" I froze for a moment, unsure of how to answer. The truth? The truth was I didn't know. I didn't know if she was ever going to come back. The woman I had spent years with, building a life, raising a child, had left us without a word. Without so much as a goodbye. She had planned this, and now I was left to pick up the pieces. But there was something about Julian's question that hit me hard. He was waiting for my answer. He was waiting for me to say something that would make it all okay. I swallowed hard and put a hand on his shoulder. "I don't know, Julian," I said, my voice softer than I wanted it to be. "But I promise you this. We're going to be okay. No matter what happens, we're going to get through this." He looked at me, his eyes so much older than his 12 years, and nodded. But I could see it, he didn't believe me. He didn't believe her. And he shouldn't. He was too smart for that. The next morning, after Julian went to school, I picked up the phone and called Daniel again. He had been digging into the financial transactions, trying to piece together the puzzle. I was desperate for answers. I needed something I could use, something concrete. I had no intention of letting Bianca off the hook for what she had done. Not when she had used my name to ruin everything we had. I was done letting her have control over this situation. It was time to take control back. Daniel picked up quickly, his voice serious. "Marcus, you need to hear this." I braced myself. "What did you find?" He paused before speaking, like he was choosing his words carefully. It's worse than we thought, man. This guy, Carter Reynolds, he's deep in some shady stuff. We're talking wire fraud, money laundering. Bianca didn't just borrow the money. She's been funneling it to him, using your name to hide it. She's tied up in something big. I felt the blood drain from my face. Money laundering? I repeated, as if hearing the words would somehow make it less real. How is that even possible? Because she's not as stupid as she looks, Daniel said, his voice laced with frustration. She's been using your accounts, moving money around. And now, it's all coming back on you. You're at the center of it, Marcus. You've got to get ahead of this. I felt like I was drowning. I was already fighting to hold everything together. But this was something else. I wasn't just dealing with the fallout of a cheating wife and a broken home. I was dealing with a criminal operation, one that I was unwittingly caught up in. But I wasn't going to just sit back and let this happen. Bianca had made her choices. Now, I was going to make mine. And she wasn't going to like the consequences. I hung up the phone, the weight of it all pressing down on me. I looked out the window, watching as the world carried on, oblivious to the storm that was about to hit. I couldn't let Bianca win. I couldn't let her get away with destroying everything I had worked for. I wasn't going to be a victim. Not anymore. It was time to fight back. The more I dug into the mess Bianca had left behind, the deeper it got. I had hoped that maybe, just maybe, I was wrong, that the numbers on the bank statement, the random hotel charges, and all those unexplained transfers were just some misunderstanding. But every new detail I uncovered only confirmed what I feared. Bianca had been planning this for a while. And worse, she wasn't just running off with my money. She was involved in something far darker. Something I couldn't have imagined in my worst nightmare. I spent days on the phone with Daniel, going over the evidence he found. He'd been tracing Bianca's transactions, trying to follow the money trail. But it wasn't just about the loans or the credit card charges. It was the people she was sending money to, guys like Carter Reynolds. When Daniel mentioned that name for the first time, it didn't hit me at first. But when he started connecting the dots, money flowing from my accounts to Carter's, wire transfers to offshore accounts, I felt my blood run cold. Carter Reynolds wasn't just some guy she was having an affair with. He was a criminal, a man wrapped up in money laundering, wire fraud, and God knows what else. And Bianca had dragged me into it. I sat there in my living room, staring at the screen, unable to move, my hands shaking. The depth of what Bianca had done was finally sinking in. She didn't just take our savings and leave. She had used me as a pawn in a game I didn't even know I was playing. Every dollar she spent, every lie she told, every late night meeting with friends, it was all part of a bigger plan. A plan I hadn't even seen coming. Marcus, Daniel's voice cut through my thoughts, pulling me back to reality. You need to understand, this isn't just about you and Bianca anymore. This is bigger. Carter is under investigation by the feds. They've been watching him for months, but they didn't have a direct link to anyone until now. And Bianca, she's the one who gave it to them. The words hit me like a punch in the gut. My wife, the woman I had loved, the mother of my son, had tied us to a criminal operation. And now it was all about to come crashing down. I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was suffocating under the weight of it all. And yet, in the pit of my stomach, there was this gnawing feeling. This overwhelming urge to do something, anything, to stop it. I couldn't let her walk away scot-free. She had taken everything from me, from Julian, and now it was my turn. I couldn't just sit back and let the law handle this. Not when I knew how deep she was involved. Not when I was being dragged down with her. I needed answers. I needed to find out where the money was going, and how the hell I could untangle this mess before it buried me alive. That night, after Julian went to bed, I did something I hadn't done in years. I went through Bianca's things. Her makeup, her bags, her journals, anything I could get my hands on. I wasn't expecting to find anything useful, but I needed to do something. Anything. And that's when I found it. Tucked inside the back of one of her handbags, buried under a pile of receipts, was a folder. I pulled it out, my hand still shaking. I opened it slowly, my heart pounding in my chest. It wasn't just receipts or travel documents like I expected. No, it was something far worse. There, in black and white, were emails between Bianca and Carter. And the details in those emails made my stomach churn. They were talking about money, large sums, wire transfers, and plans to clean it through a series of offshore accounts. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My wife, the woman I had trusted, had been helping him launder money, using my name, my credit, and now she had dragged me into something that could ruin us both. I sat back, staring at the papers in front of me, my mind racing. What the hell was I supposed to do now? How could I fix this? How could I make sure she paid for this? I knew I needed proof, something I could take to the authorities. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that wasn't enough. No. I had to hit her where it hurt. I spent the next few hours making calls more to Daniel, to friends I trusted, anyone who might be able to help me put the pieces together. I had to stop Bianca from running off and leaving me to clean up her mess. The plan started taking shape in my mind, and though it wasn't foolproof, it was all I had. I wasn't going to let her ruin me. I wasn't going to let her tear apart everything I'd worked for, everything Julian and I had built. But the more I worked, the more I understood one thing. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It wasn't just about catching her. It was about survival, about protecting what was left of my life, my family. I took a deep breath, looking at the clock. I had to move quickly. The longer I waited, the harder it would be to put the pieces back together. Tomorrow, I was going to Miami. I was going to find out everything I could about Carter Reynolds, and I was going to make sure Bianca knew exactly what it felt like to lose everything. She thought she had the upper hand. She thought she could just walk away and leave me in the dust. But she was wrong. I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Not now. Not ever. The weight of everything was beginning to crush me. Every step I took felt heavier than the last. Every phone call, every email, every document I uncovered just piled on top of the burden. I couldn't stop thinking about the mess Bianca had made, the lies, the stolen money, the way she had destroyed everything I had worked for. It wasn't just about the debt anymore. It was about betrayal on a level I didn't even know was possible. And now, the more I dug, the more I realized I wasn't just dealing with a wife who had gone rogue. No, I was caught up in something far bigger. Something that I couldn't control. But damn it, I wasn't about to let her or anyone get away with this. The more I learned about Carter Reynolds, the worse it got. He wasn't just some random guy Bianca had fallen for. No, Carter was a piece of work. He had a criminal record a mile long. Money laundering, wire fraud, even embezzlement. The kind of guy you don't want anywhere near your life, let alone your wife. The deeper I dug, the more I found, and it all pointed to one ugly truth. Bianca had been using me as a pawn in his game. She had been funneling my money to him, helping him clean up his dirty business. I felt sick just thinking about it. She had taken everything I had, my trust, my money, my dignity, and used it to help fund his criminal empire. I couldn't let this slide. I couldn't let her or him destroy what little was left of my life. It was one thing to steal from me, but this was on another level. I knew I needed help. I wasn't stupid enough to think I could do this on my own. So I called in the big guns. Daniel had done a lot of the digging into the financial side of things. But now I needed someone who could help me put it all together. Someone who knew how to track people. Find the evidence I needed to put the pieces of this puzzle in place. Daniel connected me with an old contact of his, another guy, who had worked with the feds in the past. A real hard hitter. The more I learned, the more the pieces of the puzzle fell into place. Carter was tied to a series of offshore accounts. Bianca had been transferring money to him for months, money that didn't belong to her. My money. All of it was hidden in plain sight, moving around in ways that would have taken me years to figure out on my own. But with the right people looking into it, everything started to unravel. It wasn't just the money. It was everything, every lie, every secret she'd kept from me. Bianca had been living two lives. She'd been playing me for a fool while she ran around, spending my hard-earned cash on a criminal. And I had been blind to it. I should have seen the signs. The late nights. The business trips. The way she'd always been so careless with her spending. The credit cards, the luxury items, hell, the damn hotel stays in Miami. I had ignored it all, hoping it was just a phase. But it wasn't a phase. It was a full-on scheme, and I was the one left holding the bag. The realization hit me like a gut punch. I couldn't just let her walk away from this. I couldn't let her get away with destroying everything. I had to act fast. I couldn't wait for the feds to step in. I needed to make sure she understood exactly what she'd done. She needed to feel the weight of her actions. I needed leverage. I needed a way to make sure she didn't just slip away into the shadows, unscathed. That's when I made the decision I was going to Miami. I had the address of the hotel where Bianca and Carter had been staying. And I wasn't going to wait around for the authorities to get their act together. I needed to confront her. I needed answers. I needed to hear it from her own damn mouth. I didn't know what to expect when I got there. I didn't know if she'd try to deny everything, or if she'd come clean. But one thing was certain, she wasn't going to get away with it. Not this time. I spent the next few hours getting everything ready. I wasn't going in empty-handed. I had already started freezing accounts, tracking every dollar Bianca had spent. I had enough evidence to bury her if I needed to. But I didn't want to bury her. I wanted her to understand the magnitude of what she'd done. I wanted her to feel the same anger and betrayal that had been burning inside me since the moment I found that damn note. By the time I pulled into the parking garage of the hotel in Miami, I was a bundle of nerves. My stomach was in knots, my mind racing with a million different thoughts. I wasn't sure what I was going to find, or what was going to happen next, but I knew one thing: this was the moment. This was the moment I'd been waiting for, the moment where I could finally take control of my life again. I parked the car, took a deep breath, and stepped out. The heat hit me instantly, the sticky, oppressive Miami air wrapping around me like a blanket. I wasn't here for the vacation vibe. I wasn't here to relax. I was here for answers. I was here to make sure that, no matter what, Bianca understood just how much damage she had done. I walked into the hotel lobby, the sound of my boots echoing in the quiet space. My pulse was racing, but I kept my cool. This wasn't the time to lose my head. I had to be smart. I had to play this the right way. As I made my way to the elevator, I couldn't help but wonder if this would finally be the moment where everything changed. I wasn't sure what I was walking into when I stepped off the elevator and into the hotel lobby. The weight of the situation hit me the moment the doors slid open. The marble floors gleamed under the soft lights. The lobby was pristine, too perfect. This was the kind of place Bianca would have loved. The kind of place she'd dreamt of while I busted my ass to keep everything running. It was sickening. She had stolen everything from me, and here she was, living in luxury while I was left picking up the pieces. I scanned the area quickly, trying to keep my cool. I wasn't here to make a scene. I wasn't here to lose control. I was here to get answers. But damn, it was hard to keep calm when every part of me wanted to just march up to the concierge, ask where she was, and drag her back by the hair if I had to. But I had to be smarter than that. This wasn't about rage, it was about survival. I had to think this through, make sure I had everything in place before I confronted her. I walked up to the front desk, my footsteps echoing in the quiet lobby. The attendant didn't even look up at first, too busy with his phone. I cleared my throat, and he glanced up, a bit startled, like I had interrupted something important. I forced a smile, but I wasn't fooling anyone. "I'm looking for suite 1409, I said, keeping my voice low, controlled. "Bianca Reynolds. Can you point me in the right direction?" The moment I said her name, I saw something in the guy's eyes shift just a flicker, but it was enough to make me suspicious. He looked down at his screen, typing something into the computer, his fingers a little too slow, like he was thinking about how to answer. He didn't speak for a moment, and my patience was already wearing thin. "She's in 1409, sir," he finally said. But his voice had that fake politeness that told me he knew more than he was letting on. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak again. I turned toward the elevators, my heart pounding in my chest. As I waited for the doors to open, I replayed the last few days in my mind. The conversations with Daniel, the endless hours on the phone trying to piece everything together. Every bit of evidence, every damn email and wire transfer. It was all leading me to this moment. Bianca hadn't just betrayed me. She had dragged me into a world I didn't want to be part of. But here I was, on the brink of facing her, the woman who had broken everything we'd built. And now, I was going to take control back. I was going to make sure she paid for this, no matter what. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime, and I stepped inside, the tension in my shoulders increasing with every floor we passed. My hands were clammy, my mind racing. What the hell was I going to say when I saw her? I didn't have a script. I didn't know what kind of answer I was looking for. All I knew was that I wasn't going to leave without getting some closure. some form of justice. She had left me hanging, drowning in debt, and I was done being the one left behind. When the elevator doors opened on the 14th floor, I stepped out and turned the corner toward suite 1409. The hall was quiet, almost too quiet. My footsteps echoed against the plush carpet as I walked, each step bringing me closer to her, closer to the confrontation I had been dreading, and yet craving at the same time. I stopped in front of the door, my chest tightening as I knocked, once, twice. For a moment, there was nothing. No movement. No sound. I raised my hand to knock again, but just as my knuckles touched the wood, I heard the shuffle of footsteps inside. The door creaked open, just a few inches, and there she was. Bianca. Standing in front of me in a silk robe, her hair a little messy, like she had just woken up. Her face shifted from annoyance to shock in an instant. It was like she didn't expect me to be here. Her eyes flicked past me, probably wondering if I was alone, if I had brought someone with me. But I didn't need anyone else. I had all the evidence I needed. I wasn't here to play nice. I was here to expose everything she had done, everything she had stolen from me, and from Julian. I took a deep breath, stepping forward, not giving her the chance to close the door. "We need to talk," I said, my voice low and cold. Bianca's face twisted for a moment, as if she was going to argue, but she didn't. She just stood there, her eyes darting between me and the door behind her. I could see the panic creeping in. She had to know that everything was coming undone, that I had the upper hand now. I wasn't the man she had walked all over anymore. I wasn't going to stand by and let her destroy everything. Not this time. "I don't have time for this, Marcus," she finally said, trying to sound dismissive, but I could hear the edge in her voice. She was nervous. She knew exactly what was coming. "Too bad," I replied. "Because we're going to finish this, Bianca. You don't get to run away this time." I could see the flicker of guilt in her eyes, but it was gone as quickly as it appeared. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't even close to being sorry. And in that moment, I realized something. This wasn't about closure. This wasn't about trying to fix things. No, this was about justice. And I was done waiting for it. I pushed the door open wider and stepped inside. She stepped back, her face a mixture of disbelief and irritation. I didn't care. I wasn't leaving without getting the truth. Not this time. I walked into that suite with a purpose now, and I could feel every muscle in my body tense up as I did. This was it. This was the moment where everything would come crashing down. Bianca wasn't going to just walk away from this. I wasn't going to let her. I had enough proof to bury her. And the longer she stood there trying to act like this wasn't happening, the more I could feel my patience running out. But I couldn't lose control. Not now. I had to keep my cool, keep the pressure on her. Bianca shut the door behind me, her movements stiff and hesitant. She didn't say anything right away. The silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. I watched her, waiting for her to make the first move. She couldn't look me in the eye, and that told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't the confident, untouchable woman I had known. The woman standing in front of me now was cornered, trying to figure out how she was going to talk her way out of this. She opened her mouth to say something, but I cut her off before she could speak. Don't give me any of your lies, Bianca. I'm done with them. I'm done with you." I was amazed at how calm my voice sounded. On the inside, I was a mess, my heart pounding in my chest, but I wasn't going to let her see that. I wasn't going to let her think she still had any control over me. She opened her mouth again, but this time, there was no smirk, no deflection. There was only a flash of panic in her eyes. She was realizing the same thing I had. The jig was up. "Marcus, please," she said, her voice wavering slightly. "This isn't what it looks like. You don't understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly," I snapped. "You think you can just disappear and leave me to pick up the pieces? You think you can just walk away from everything you've done? From everything you've taken?" I took a step closer, my anger finally starting to break through the calm facade. "You've stolen from me, Bianca. From us." I gestured around the room, the expensive furniture, the luxury that she had built for herself while I was working my ass off. "You've been living high while I've been drowning in your mess." She flinched at the words, but didn't say anything. I could see her trying to put on that cold, distant mask again, the one that had worked for so long. But it wasn't working anymore. I wasn't some fool she could manipulate. Not now. I took another step forward, my voice lowering to a dangerous growl. You've been stealing from me, Bianca. You've been using my name to fund some criminal operation, helping some low-life scumbag like Carter Reynolds launder money. You've been playing me for a fool, and I'm done letting you get away with it. Her face went pale, and I saw the fight leave her eyes for a split second. It was the moment I'd been waiting for, the moment she realized she wasn't going to talk her way out of this. But I wasn't done yet. I wasn't letting her off that easy. Tell me, Bianca, I continued, my voice rough with emotion. How long did you think you could get away with this? How long did you think you could screw me over and just walk away without a scratch? I shook my head, the anger bubbling up again. You're not leaving here until I get some answers. You owe me that much. For a moment, she just stood there, her eyes darting around the room like she was trying to figure out her next move. Then, her shoulders slumped, and she let out a shaky breath. Marcus, she stopped herself, the words catching in her throat. I wasn't interested in her apologies. Not now. Not after everything she'd done. Don't even start with the excuses. Bianca, I cut in sharply. I'm done listening to your lies. I stepped closer. The space between us so small I could feel the tension radiating off her. You think you can just waltz back into my life and expect me to forgive you? To just sweep everything under the rug? Not this time. I could feel my blood boiling, but I held it together. I wasn't about to lose my head. Not here. Not now. You're going to pay for what you've done. You're going to feel every bit of this, just like I have. You think you've ruined me? No. This isn't over. Her eyes darted to the side, her hands trembling slightly. I could see it in her guilt, fear, maybe even a little regret. But it was too late for that. The damage was done. And now it was my turn to make sure she didn't get away with it. I'll make sure the law knows exactly what you've been up to, I said, my voice hardening with every word. Every dollar you stole. Every lie you told. Every damn thing you've done to ruin me. I'm going to make sure the whole world knows. And I'll make sure Carter Reynolds gets his too. Bianca's face paled even more, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of real fear in her eyes. She had thought she could keep getting away with this, but now she saw that I wasn't backing down. I wasn't letting her walk away from this mess like it was nothing. She had destroyed my life, but I was going to make damn sure she didn't do the same to Julian. Not if I had anything to say about it. I stared at her for a long moment, letting the weight of everything sink in. Then, without saying another word, I turned and walked out of that suite. The door slammed shut behind me, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I let out a breath I didn't even know I was holding. The tension in the air was so thick I could almost taste it, but I wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. My hands were still shaking as I walked away from Suite 1409, but now it was a different kind of anger that was fueling me. I could feel it in my chest, the fire burning hotter, pushing me forward. Bianca had made her move, but now I was making mine. And this wasn't going to be some half-hearted attempt to clean up her mess. No, I was going to bury her with the truth, with the evidence, and make damn sure she didn't slip away again. I could feel the eyes of the hotel staff on me as I walked past the front desk. I wasn't in the mood to deal with anyone, so I didn't even glance at the receptionist. But I could tell they knew something was off. I didn't care. I had one goal now: make sure Bianca knew exactly what she had done, and make her pay for it. She hadn't thought I'd come after her this way, hell. She probably thought she could just disappear into the wind with Carter. But I wasn't going to let that happen. Not after everything she'd taken from me. The walk to my car was a blur, my mind racing with 1,000 different thoughts. What was I supposed to do next? How could I turn the tables on her now? I had all this evidence, all these documents, but I needed more. I needed leverage, something I could use to really hit her where it hurt. As I got into the driver's seat, I pulled my phone out and made the call I had been dreading, but knew I had to make. Daniel, I said when he picked up. It's time. There was a moment of silence on the other end, and I could almost hear him processing the weight of the words. What do you mean, Marcus? What happened? I let out a sharp breath, glancing out the windshield. I confronted her. It's all out in the open now. She knows I know what she's been doing, but we need to go harder. I need to get this into the right hands, and I need to make sure it sticks. No more playing nice. There was a pause, then a slow nod from Daniel on the other side. I get it. You want to hit her with everything we've got. Exactly, I replied, slamming my fist against the steering wheel. We've got the money transfers, the fraud, the whole damn scheme. It's all there. We just need to make sure she can't escape this. I ran a hand through my hair, feeling the pressure in my chest. She's already tied up in a mess with Carter. If we push this the right way, we can drag her down with him. The feds are already looking at him now. We just need to make sure they look at her, too. Daniel was quiet for a moment, then responded, his voice steady. I'll handle the legal stuff. I'll make sure we get everything submitted, everything in order. You just focus on keeping her in check. If she knows you're not backing down, that'll put the pressure on her. She'll crack. I hung up, the weight of it all sinking in. I wasn't done. I had to keep pushing, keep moving, because if I let up for even a second, Bianca would slip away. And I couldn't let that happen. Not after what she did. I drove back to my apartment in a haze, my mind too focused on what needed to happen next to think about anything else. It wasn't just about revenge anymore, it was about survival. If I didn't take control of this situation, if I didn't force her to face the consequences, everything would fall apart. Not just for me, but for Julian. I pulled into the parking lot. The familiar hum of the engine cutting through the silence. I felt like I had been in a storm, but now, there was a strange calm settling over me. Maybe it was the adrenaline. Maybe it was the anger. But I was ready. I was ready to finish this. I went straight to my desk, pulled out the files, and started going over them again. The emails. The bank statements. The receipts. Everything. The more I read, the clearer it became. Bianca had planned this for a long time. She had played me, played all of us, and I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I wasn't going to let her turn me into the fool anymore. I knew this wasn't going to be easy. I knew there would be more twists, more games, more lies. But at that moment, as I looked over the documents in front of me, one thing was certain, I was in control now. She thought she had the upper hand. She thought she could walk away from the wreckage she'd caused. But she was wrong. I wasn't going to let her slip away again. Not this time. It felt like I had been holding my breath for days. Every minute that passed after I left that hotel suite in Miami weighed heavier than the last. The confrontation had been a turning point, but it wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of something bigger, something I wasn't sure I was ready for. But in some strange way, I was also eager for it. Bianca had tried to run. She had tried to break everything apart, but she hadn't counted on me fighting back. She hadn't counted on Julian, either. After I made that call to Daniel, after I told him everything, I realized that I was on the right path now. It wasn't just about confronting Bianca or getting revenge for the betrayal. It was about justice. It was about making sure she didn't just walk away, leaving me to clean up the mess she had made. She thought she could erase all the damage, slip away into the night with Carter Reynolds, and leave me to pick up the pieces of my life. But she was wrong. I spent the next few days diving into the mountain of evidence I had collected. I couldn't let it sit there untouched. I couldn't afford to wait any longer. Every wire transfer, every email, every phone call, I went through it all. There was no more room for hesitation, no more room for doubt. This wasn't a game anymore. This was real life. And in real life, you didn't let people like Bianca get away with ruining everything you had. She had taken advantage of me, of my trust, and now, I was going to make sure she didn't escape without facing the consequences. I felt a little numb as I sat at my kitchen table late at night, papers scattered in front of me, my head spinning. Julian had gone to bed hours ago, and yet, I couldn't bring myself to sleep. It wasn't the kind of tired that came from physical exhaustion. No, it was the kind of tired that came from carrying the weight of everything at once. The betrayal, the anger, the fear that I had been blind for so long. But at the same time, there was something else. A sharp clarity, a focus that hadn't been there before. I had a plan now. I wasn't stumbling around in the dark anymore. I knew exactly what I had to do. I called Daniel again, this time to put the final pieces in place. He had been invaluable throughout this whole thing. He knew how to move things behind the scenes, how to make sure the right people got their hands on the right information. It's time to take the gloves off, I told him, my voice firm. We've got everything we need to bring her down. Now we need to make sure the authorities know what she's done. Daniel didn't hesitate. I'll get the ball rolling on this end, he said. But remember, Marcus, you've got to keep your head on straight. This is going to get messy. We can't afford to make any mistakes. I knew he was right. This wasn't just about exposing Bianca anymore. The more I uncovered, the more I realized just how deep she was involved in Carter's operation. This wasn't just a matter of money, it was something bigger. It was a criminal enterprise. And she had dragged me into it without me even knowing. I had to make sure this was handled the right way, by the right people, before everything spiraled out of control. The next morning, I sat down with Julian over breakfast, trying to act as normal as possible. I knew he could tell something was off. He was too smart for me to pretend everything was okay. But he didn't ask any questions. He just sat there, poking at his cereal with a spoon, lost in his own thoughts. He wasn't a kid anymore, not with everything that had happened. He had seen the anger in my eyes when I came back from Miami, and he had heard the edge in my voice when I was on the phone with Daniel. But he didn't push. He just let me talk when I was ready, and I appreciated that more than he could ever know. "Dad," he said after a long silence, his voice steady, "are we going to be okay?" I looked at him, trying to hold it together, trying to show him that I wasn't falling apart. "Yeah, buddy," I said, the words feeling heavy as they left my mouth. "We're going to be okay. We're going to fix this." He nodded, but there was something in his eyes that made my stomach twist. He didn't believe me. He knew, deep down, that things were far from okay. But I couldn't tell him everything. Not yet. Not when I still had so many pieces of this puzzle to put together. The phone buzzed again, breaking the moment. It was Daniel. "You're going to want to hear this," he said, his voice sharp. "We've got a lead on Carter. He's been moving money around again. And it's all tied back to Bianca." I leaned forward, my heart skipping a beat. "What do you mean? What's going on?" "We're closing in on him," Daniel said, his tone darkening. "And we've got enough to push this over the edge. We can't let him slip away. He's been using her, Marcus. And now it's time to make sure he takes the fall." I felt a chill run down my spine. This was it. This was where everything was going to come together. The authorities would be on Carter's tail, and once they connected the dots, there would be nowhere for Bianca to hide. But I still needed to make sure she couldn't run. I still needed to make sure she knew she wasn't going to walk away from this. I took a deep breath and stood up, walking to the window and looking out at the city below. "This is it, Daniel. It's over for her." "You sure about that?" he asked, a note of caution in his voice. "Absolutely," I said, my voice unwavering. "I'm done letting her control this. I'm done letting her think she can destroy everything and get away with it." With that, I knew it was time. I had done everything I could. The legal side was in motion. The pieces were falling into place. And soon, the world would know exactly who Bianca was and what she had done. There would be no more running, no more lies. This was the end of the line, and I was finally ready to move on, knowing that I had fought for what was right. I had survived, and I would come out stronger, no matter what happened next. So, what would you do if you were in my shoes? Would you just walk away, or would you make them pay for everything? Stick around to see the shocking twist at the end, because this isn't over yet. In fact, it's only just begun. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And let's see what happens when the tables turn. What I learned the hard way is this: trust is earned, not given. You can't just assume someone's loyalty based on love or time spent together. Protect your finances. Keep track of where your money goes, and never ignore the red flags. In America, your financial security is everything. Don't let anyone drain it without consequences. If something feels off, speak up, investigate, and never let silence be the shield for deceit. The price of ignoring the truth can be far too high. Stand up for yourself, because in the end, your survival depends on it.